The life of Tommy Douglas touched us all. His idealism and vision for Canada were born out of the harsh realities of the Great Depression in the 30s. Tommy Douglas, a Baptist minister, traded his pulpit for a political podium. His legacy is a rich one.
Tommy Douglas formed North America's first socialist government. He gave us Medicare. Today, the Canadian social and political fabric is richer because of Tommy Douglas. Tonight, a portrait of one of Canada's greatest politicians.
Everything will be exactly the same as it is now, except one simple thing. That is that instead of the doctor sending the bill to you, he will send the bill to the medical care plan. Now, surely there's nothing very complicated about this.
Tommy Douglas is the father of Canadian Medicare. A simple idea, but a revolutionary one. Douglas campaigned for it. He fought for it. He had a fighting spirit, a dedication to social equality. Those were the hallmarks of his career. Tommy Douglas was born in Falkirk, Scotland in 1904, the son of an iron molder who joined many others in seeking a better life in Canada. Tommy was 10 when he arrived in Winnipeg. Times were not good in the new country.
My father was an iron molder, worked with spasmodic. Sometimes he'd be laid off for what they called short time. In those days, if you were laid off at 10 o'clock in the morning, your pay stopped at 10 o'clock in the morning. And we had some pretty grim times.
A loving home environment blunted the impact of the poverty.
I had parents who were interested in books. My mother would read to me at night. My father played an old organ that we got, and my mother sang.
At 12, Tommy developed a bone infection. He landed in hospital, faced with the loss of his leg. A doctor agreed to treat him free if he would serve as an exhibit for his students.
Probably the best orthopedic surgeon in Winnipeg took charge of my case. We couldn't have afforded to hire him, you know, and there was no Medicare in those days.
Tommy got better, but conditions around him got worse as his father went off to fight for the British Army in World War I. Tommy went to work as an apprentice printer to help support his mother. When his father and thousands of other veterans returned to Canada, jobs and food were scarce. In Winnipeg, the talk was of radical politics and labor unions. It climaxed in the Winnipeg General Strike. Tommy, still a teenager, watched from a rooftop as the police shot at the strikers. Tommy Douglas took those memories with him when he went off to study for the Baptist ministry. He became a leader among classmates who shared his passion for social justice. One of them was Stanley Knowles.
And we both came to this conviction that the role for us was in political life, in support of the democratic socialism, to try to do something so that people like his dad and mine wouldn't suffer, so that the conditions that had been experienced on the prairies or in the city wouldn't be repeated. And the result is we formed a pretty close personal relationship.
It was a relationship that spanned more than 50 years, even overcoming a first test. On graduation, Knowles lost out in his application to be minister of the Weyburn Baptist Church. The congregation chose Tommy Douglas. On Sundays, Douglas preached to his congregation. But by the mid-30s, almost half the population of Saskatchewan was on relief. So during the rest of the week, Douglas worked at bettering the everyday lives of his parishioners. Through another preacher, J.S. Woodsworth, Douglas maintained his political interests and contacts beyond Weyburn. Woodsworth, a leader of the Winnipeg General Strike, was trying to unite the various socialists into one group.
In the fall of 1932, Mr. Woodsworth, who laid the foundation for forming the CCF, organized a convention to be held in 1933. And in 1933, the convention was held in Regina, out of which came the Regina Manifesto, and the CCF was launched.
The Regina Manifesto was a milestone in Canadian political history. It came from an alliance of socialist intellectuals and farm and labor groups. The manifesto called for government takeover of banks, transportation, and communications, and it called for free health care. The Cooperative Commonwealth Federation was more than a party. It was a movement, and Douglas was active in it from the start. Some people called the new party Bolshevik, communist, and godless, but that didn't bother Douglas. His credo was basic decency. His optimism that Canadians would agree was as deep as his religious conviction. He was undaunted when he was defeated the first time he ran for Parliament. His optimism seemed well-founded. He was elected to the House of Commons in 1935, and by 1939, a Gallup poll said the CCF was the most popular party in Canada. In 1944, Douglas left the House of Commons to lead the provincial CCF. He led the party into power, North America's first democratic socialist government. It was the chance to show that CCF dreams could be turned into reality, and the new cabinet went right to work, setting up government-owned companies in forestry, insurance, housing, and transportation. The CCF even wiped out the provincial debt. To help pay the bills, the cabinet took a pay cut. The list of CCF firsts includes the first Bill of Rights, the first civil service bargaining rights, and the first government auto insurance scheme. But the achievement that stands out is Medicare. Premier Douglas made himself health minister and introduced North America's first hospital care program. He also laid the groundwork for Canada's first Medicare plan, bucking well-orchestrated opposition. The CCF fought a bitter doctor's strike over the plan, but when the showdown was over, the first Medicare plan in North America was a fact.
Until this act was passed, here I am going to be 65 in December. I've paid into the group medical all these years since its inception. And now, because I'm 65, I am not covered anymore. Me or my wife. But this thing, it doesn't matter what your disabilities are. Every person in the province will be covered, same as hospitalization.
Douglas won re-election 4 times. His popularity was immense. An opponent once said, Douglas doesn't have to kiss babies, babies kiss him. His daughter Shirley says Douglas was a complete human being.
In everyone else, there's always been 2 or 3 pieces missing. And I've kept waiting all my life to see where Tommy's terrible hole was going to be. And it's never showed.
But while Douglas's popularity soared, the fortunes of the national CCF waned. The party was still strong in the West, but weak in the industrialized East. So the national leader, M.J. Coldwell, set about building a formal alliance with the trade union movement. The result was a new party, the New Democratic Party, and a new leader, T.C. Douglas.
I hereby declare Mr. Tommy Douglas the national leader of the New Democratic Party.
Douglas enters the 1962 federal election campaign with enthusiasm building for the party in the East. The great NDP breakthrough seems at hand. But in Quebec, the NDP makes no headway, and in the West there is still bitterness over Medicare. The election results are disappointing, and Douglas loses his own seat.
Fight on, my men, said Sir Andrew Barton. I am hurt, but I am not slain. I'll lie me down and bleed a while, and then I'll rise and fight again.
Douglas won another House of Commons seat in British Columbia. He lost that. He won Nanaimo, Cowichan, the islands. But the party never won national power. Yet Douglas's campaigning always continued. He was never tired. He was always smiling. In the late 60s in California, Shirley Douglas was arrested on charges of buying arms for the Black Panthers. The charges would turn out to be a frame-up. Tommy flew off to Los Angeles to help his daughter with that same smile, that same immunity to pessimism.
Sir, do you feel disappointed that your daughter did not show up to meet you?
Well, I'm not sure she hasn't shown up to meet me. People haven't given me any chance to find out whether she met me or not.
She hasn't?
How do you know?
She's not here.
How do you know?
I haven't seen her.
Well, the fact you haven't seen her doesn't mean a thing. You're standing at the very door as I come in, and I don't know how I'd get a chance to see her or her to see me.
Fine, sir.
So I don't think you have to jump in. Hello, honey.
Hi.
That's the daughter. This gentleman just telling me that you're not here.
Douglas led the NDP for a decade. He was never prime minister. He was never even leader of the opposition. But if political success is judged not by the number of high offices held, but by the number of policies adopted, the NDP has been a very successful party, and Douglas has been one of our most successful politicians.
We've got guaranteed old age pensions at 65. We've got contributory old age pensions in addition. We've got family allowances. We've got unemployment insurance. We've got hospital insurance. We've got Medicare.
Tommy Douglas remained in the House of Commons until 1979. In retirement, he worked on the Coldwell Douglas Foundation, designed to promote democratic socialism.
And Tommy goes all over the place, and they're everywhere. I've been to to testimonial dinners that are held in his honor, and they come from all the places he's been. People just love Tommy Douglas, and in my view, rightly so.
Whether you think I'm right or whether you'll think I'm wrong, the fact is that I have fought for the interests of the common man, in season and out of season, in Parliament and out of Parliament.